All right. I think we're live here. Let me confirm that. Yes. All right. We're live. All right. We'll wait for some people to come into the chat here. All right. Let me get this out on Substack. If you guys aren't already on the PolitiBrawl Substack, then definitely go over there and subscribe. I can even leave a link or put a link in the chat. Just wanted to send this out simultaneously to when we're going live here. All right. Awesome. All right, guys. So you may have noticed that a wave of socialists have been winning Democrat primaries across America, and we can't just flippantly ignore this or laugh at them and make fun of them as conservatives. We have to take them seriously. I think it would be a huge mistake if we consider this a blip on the screen, or if we say that these people aren't going to be viable in other areas of the country. I think that it is viable. You know, I think that there are young, disenfranchised, left-wing people all around the nation in areas that you might not expect that are very high-propensity voters. You know, they care very deeply about the problems and concerns that they consider to be important, and they come out and vote. So I think this definitely is a bad omen for the Democrat Party. The establishment Democrats are going to have a hell of a time beating back this monster that they created. But this also is something for Republicans to contend with, too. So last night, we had Malat Kiros, Ethiopian-born anti-Israel socialist crusader. I don't know if I call her a crusader, but she's kind of the opposite of a crusader, who is the DSA's rising star after stunning upset in Colorado. Democratic socialism is spreading west. Political newcomer Malat Kiros, 29 years old. I'm 29. These people are very, very young. It's kind of shocking, actually. Who took down 15-term Democratic incumbent Rep. Diana DeGetti in Colorado. In a stunning primary upset Tuesday, is riding a wave of anti-Israel and anti-ICE sentiment sweeping her party. The Ethiopian-born PhD student has pushed to abolish immigration and custom enforcement, suggesting that September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks and October 7th Hamas attacks were inevitable, downplaying suggestions that firebombing of a Jewish rally was an act of anti-Semitism. I saw that come out today. It's amazing that somebody who you would think would be disqualified by these things is actually winning a Democrat primary in a state that is liberal. I mean, Colorado, you think of pot-smoking hippies for the most part, but this is happening in New York. It's happening in Seattle. It's happening in Maine. You know, even people who aren't DSA candidates but are still radical left-wingers, like Graham Plattner in Maine, are winning. You know, they're to be taken seriously. Let me get this nicotine out of my mouth here. So the thing about her, Malat Kiros, is she was another one of these Hassan Piker-backed and promoted candidates. Hassan Piker has now rallied for and endorsed 11 primary candidates who have won in 4 states. 5 will serve in the 2027 U.S. Congress. Well, a lot of these elections are like inevitable deep blue, always blue districts that there really is no serious Republican or third-party candidate that's going to challenge them. Here in Washington, D.C., we have a DSA candidate who just won the the Democrat primary for being mayor. And D.C. always has a Democrat mayor. She's definitely going to be the next mayor of D.C. Trump has said that he's going to federalize the city. He's not going to have a communist running D.C. And that's creating a lot of tension here in Washington, D.C. And we're definitely going to explore that in some videos coming up down the pipeline this summer between now and the election. So I wanted to get into this. You know, Hassan Piker, in some ways, he's kind of like overblown. You know, I think every time we say his name, it's a bad thing in some ways because we're legitimizing this guy, we're pumping him up, we're advertising for him. But at the same time, if you don't know who he is, if you're not aware of his influence on this demographic of a young socialist, then it's really hard to understand the phenomenon that we're seeing in America. And this guy first got on my radar when I realized how important he was in getting Zoran Mamdani elected in New York City. You know, he was in large part responsible for Zoran Mamdani's campaign messaging, his success with young voters in New York, but also his very novel social media strategy. And Hassan interviewed him several times and basically turned him into a household name because Hassan's got millions and millions of people under 35 years old who hate capitalism, hate America, hate Israel. But just take a look. So this is a clip of Hassan explaining how he influenced Mamdani's policy with NYPD officers hiring. And it'll just show you. I don't want to glaze the man too much. It'll show you exactly how important and influential this guy is. So let's see.
But he has been so fucking good. I mean, look. Yesterday, I was talking about how he, there's plans in motion to hire 600 new NYPD officers. Right, that goes against a core campaign promise. Groundwork came out and openly criticized them for it. Openly pressured them from the outside for it. Okay. Guess what Zoran did today? Shook hands with Menin. New budget for New York City. No new NYPD hires. Okay. Promises made, promises kept. That's it. That's it. That's huge. Okay? That's huge. That is responsive democratic politics. And I mean small d democracy. Okay? You didn't forget the people that brought you to the ball. It was Emerge. Okay, Emerge 2. Oh my.
Yeah, so I mean, he obviously has Zoran Mamdani's ear. I think that if he went to Zoran Mamdani with something he wanted done, or in his view, holding Mamdani to account for something he promised to do, he's very influential. And just imagine how influential he's going to be if any of these primary winners actually win and are now in Congress, and Hassan Piker can call him up and say, hey, we got to do this, we got to push this agenda. It's a scary proposition. This is a guy who went to Cuba on this propaganda trip to try to show his audience how great socialist Cuba is, and the only reason that they're struggling is because of U.S. sanctions that are unfair and oppressive. It's not because of socialism or communism that impoverish the country, destroy their entire socioeconomic infrastructure. I mean, it's just, what it is cognitive dissonance. It's really, really sad to see what has happened to these places like Cuba and Venezuela, North Korea, and China as an exception because they opened their markets. Like, they have a market economy with a communist layer of frosting on top. But really, they had to do that or else the country would have starved. It starved under Mao. They went through their growing pains into a communist dictatorship, and they found out pretty immediately that communism does not work as it is supposed to in theory. But
alignment hit the streets of New York. What the heck is going on in a state I once lived in?
Let's see what's going on here.
New York City had a bunch of primaries last week. We saw a bunch of socialist candidates win. Did you happen to vote in those primaries?
I did.
Do you feel comfortable sharing who you voted for?
I vote for Brad Lander.
I voted pretty much down the line for those socialist candidates.
If you had the opportunity, would you vote for a socialist?
100%.
Why?
because it's better for the people.
No one even knows what socialism means. Okay, no one knows what capitalism means. They're just like all buzzwords. We're talking about like real issues on the ground here. That's what Zoran is all about.
Where is one place where socialism has worked?
That I wouldn't know, but I'd like to see.
That really isn't my concern.
You know, Cuba has done pretty well despite like all the sanctions.
Would you want to go live in Cuba?
If America would stop interfering with Cuba. And
What is one?
Wait a sec. All right, this guy or girl, no, definitely a guy. He's absolutely right. So first of all, well, he's right on this, that these are buzzwords that people don't care about. I think that that's true. They're not just buzzwords. I mean, they are political theories, political economic theories that have major consequences for governance, for civic success, for economic success. They are real. These are ideologies that we fought over, killed each other over during the Cold War. Millions, hundreds of millions of people have died under socialist and communist regimes. But he's right about the fact that nobody knows what the hell this stuff is. And I fear that conservatives have lost a lot of the economic literacy to back up and support and defend capitalism. Why should we defend capitalism? What's good about capitalism? Well, there's a lot good about it. We've just forgotten. I haven't heard serious conservative pundits, commentators really making a case for capitalism since Charlie Kirk. He was one of the best, talking about how the free enterprise system has created more prosperity in the Western world, or really anywhere that it's been exported, for working class people, not the elites, not the billionaires, but actual tangible markers of success for working class people, the very people that the socialists claim to hail and to care about the most, to serve. They really don't. I mean, this is a small group of overeducated elites who are completely disenfranchised with everything America is about. And they see themselves as being the inheritors of this system once the revolution happens, and they want to be the new elites. Let me get to some of these comments here before we continue with this. Don't mean to be hateful about it, but I have kids and nephews, and I want to have the America I know and love. Yeah, I agree. I don't have kids yet. Soon, God willing. I don't want them to be living in a socialist city, a socialist state, or a socialist country ever. Because I have at least passing knowledge on history. I understand how math works, how economics works. And like that's what I think that these young socialists that are championing this stuff, they don't actually care about where this has been tried and failed. They see it as a pathway to power for them in the short term by using these buzzwords like affordability crisis, tax the billionaires, eat the rich. It sounds like cool, edgy things that young people can get behind, and we can be rebels and we can fight the power and all this. But once you crack a history book and you realize that this has been tried before in 1917 in Russia, and they were lining up property owners on a wall and shooting them and hanging dissidents and taking people's farms away forcefully, destroying the economy. And then that led to famine and all kinds of further dysfunction. I don't want to see that in America ever. I don't even want to see that just in New York City. I care about New York City. I grew up going there all the time. I want it to be a prosperous capitalist city. Let me see. What else we got? Sorry, I got this small on my phone here. I got to get a better setup for the live streams. But capitalism means freedom to shape your life as you please. Absolutely. That's exactly what it means. Well, it's the freedom to determine your own destiny. You can compete in a meritocracy, aka the market, and if you try hard, if you take risk, if you partner with people, if you acquire skills, then you can be successful. And people who are not doing those things are not entitled to other people's value and wealth that they worked hard to build. What we really want is defending meritocracy so that people who are lazy, who are not contributors, are not entitled to all of our shit. But I think a lot of these people are entitled, and they live with their parents, and so their politics is shaped by their personal situations. My grandfather fought the communists, and he told me The only good communist is a blank one. Yeah, I think that was a pretty popular phrase during the Vietnam War when we were fighting the communists. They were killing us. We were killing them during the Korean War as well. We used to take this very seriously. And for better or for worse, that old GOP, you can criticize a lot of things about the Reagan era or whatever. I think it was mostly fantastic. I'd like to go back to a lot of that stuff. But we took the threat of communism seriously. And we also acknowledged that it was being homegrown here in American universities, in American activist movements, and that it was not only an ideological threat, but a violent threat. Because there were groups like the Black Panthers, the Weatherman Underground, terrorist organizations that were fighting on behalf of this ideology to try to forcefully build this socialist revolution by any means necessary, whether that meant they had to blow up government buildings, assassinate people. They were willing to do all that. In a lot of cases, it did get very violent. But there were communists that embedded themselves on the campuses of American universities, especially in the Ivy League. And their sole role was to shape the worldview of the next generation of Americans to be amenable to socialism. And they were very successful. They were playing the long game on this, and it had immediate convulsions in the 60s, of course, which were very tumultuous, and it got very violent. But also, nowadays, I think we're still seeing the consequences of those information campaigns, the cultural brainwashing of American young people back then, because now that's continued, and people today, not even just in the Ivy League, but people going to university, when I was at university, it's the same thing. 93% of professors are registered Democrats. They're on the left. Less than 2%, I believe, are Republicans, and the rest are independent or whatever. But it's a shame. It's so obvious to see, too, the problem right there. I can't tell you what we do about the communists, but we all know what has to be done. Citizen vigilante was just the template. See, I haven't seen that movie yet. I've seen clips of it. It looks pretty wild. I don't even know what to think about it. I've seen some crazy clips from that movie. Let me know if you guys like that movie, if I should go see it. But, you know what? Let's continue with this. I want to respond to some of these people's... they don't even know what the hell socialism is. Let's see...
if America would stop interfering with Cuba.
What is one thing you would like to see happen tomorrow to make us more socialist?
Everybody has health care. Everybody has free education.
I love the United States. I'm a true patriot. I'm staying here. I'm sticking with it, and I'm going to fight the fascists who are currently in charge of the federal government.
All right, here with more election correspondent for the Federalists, Brianna Lyman. Can you tell me what's working so well in Cuba? I didn't quite understand that analogy.
Yeah, well, Sean, I was confused myself because I asked this individual, well, what about the people who are drowning in the water because they take a raft from Cuba to Florida? And he suggested that maybe they were, bad people in Cuba who were trying to evade authority. So that's the kind of answer I got here. And Sean, I thought it was so interesting because one of the things I heard from people the whole time is they like socialism, but not communism. They are 100% for socialism, and that the DSA candidates, don't worry about them. They don't like communism either. And then you could imagine my surprised when I read that CNN report that you just played where it said that the DSA candidate was liking stuff about communism. And so the only thing I could deduce today is that either the people were lying to me and that they actually do like the idea of communism, or they're not lying. And they like the idea of socialism. They're scared of communism, but they don't realize the slippery slope that is socialism. And unfortunately, I think by the time they do realize how slippery that slope is, it's going to be too late for all of us.
I think the other thing that stands out is they don't know what it is. They can't define it when you are asking them to explain it to you. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Yes, well, that's a big problem too. I mean, I feel that when I go out and interview liberals and talk about this subject, they have a very weak grasp as to what socialism even means. They think it just means all of these policy positions that sound good in theory. Affordable housing, that sounds great. I'm for affordable housing too. How do we get there? Well, let's raise taxes on the billionaires in New York. Okay, and freeze rents. What happens next? What's the downstream effect of that? I don't know if they're not smart enough to actually ask that question, like, oh, maybe if we do this thing over here, that something else is going to happen as a result of that. That's an unintended consequence. First of all, billionaires, job creators, entrepreneurs are going to leave New York. They're going to stop investing in New York. They're not going to be creating jobs. They're actually going to take jobs with them. So it's not just the sole billionaire that stops paying taxes and stops paying property taxes and payroll taxes, but it's all of the people that they take with them because their jobs left the city that were paying taxes. That's going to leave a massive hole in the city budget. That's the most obvious one. But when I talked to these people in New York like 2 weeks ago, I was asking them about this exact issue. They just hadn't even considered that. It was crazy. I'm like, you guys voted for Mamdani, but you didn't even consider the downstream effects of some of his policies, the most obvious downstream effects. But the other thing with freezing rents, I mean, do you think your landlord is bad now? They're not going to keep up with the maintenance because they can't afford to. They can't raise rents in accordance with the market value of rent. So now they're losing money. Do you think that they're going to buy another building and create more housing for you so that it drives the price of housing down? No. You've basically paused the natural market function, and it's going to create second order effects. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it to them. It's like second order thinking doesn't come easy to these socialists, I guess. I don't want to assume that they're all dumb, but why aren't there more people on here? Thanks for all your work. Thank you for that. Hopefully there will be more people on here. It's because I'm new to live streaming. I don't know. We're kind of new to this platform or this format. So maybe in the near future, once I get consistent with this, there will be more people on here. Fuck socialism. I agree. And I'm glad you didn't spell it. You censored it a little bit. Well, let's hear the rest of what Hannity has to say here.
Yeah, I think actually the easiest explanation for what socialism is it is the mainstream Democrat Party, because what's interesting here about these DSA candidates, Sean, is none of them are coming up with new ideas. The only thing they're doing is following to the logical conclusion the policies of mainstream Democrats. And what I mean by that is take immigration. You had Kamala Harris saying no human is illegal. Several Democrats in Congress saying the same thing. DSA candidates say, I agree with you. Let's take that idea to its logical conclusion. Let's abolish ICE. Let's end all deportations. Housing. Joe Biden said housing is a human right. DSA candidates say, yeah, it is. So let's take it to its logical conclusion. Let's freeze the rent. Let's seize private property. So it's no surprise that when I spoke to these voters today, they were saying, yeah, I'm a registered Democrat, but I would vote socialist, because to them, there is no difference.
All right, Brianna Lyman, we appreciate that report. Thank you. Now, during an interview with Steve.
Yeah. Here's the other problem is that if you want to have socialism, okay, let's theoretically grant that. How can you have open borders, right? You have this massive, robust welfare state, the administrative state, the bureaucracy to manage all of that, all those social programs is out of control, huge, just like it was in the USSR and China. But now you're going to open the floodgates to your country so that tens of millions of people every single year can come pouring in, and now you have to let those people onto the welfare programs? Meanwhile, you're stunting business growth. You're stunting economic growth, so your taxable revenue is going down. They're completely incompatible ideas that these radicals hold both at the same time and don't even feel the need to reconcile them. I don't know. So you let in millions and millions of people that are going to go onto these programs, and I guess you think the billionaires can just pay for all this? But I did a video, the one I mentioned in New York, the math does not work out. If you taxed all 1,000 billionaires, there's about 1,100 billionaires in the United States right now. If you taxed all of them 100% and you liquidated their assets, right, took every dollar that they have in income and ownership, you could fund the federal government for about 10 months. There's about a $7 trillion federal annual budget. That would get you $5 trillion and change. So there's just not enough money to tax to pay for everything that you're trying to set up here. Somebody has to be the adult in the room. We can't just let these people living in fantasy land run away with serious economies like New York City. It's not going to work. And Here's one I wanted to show you guys. So this is Van Jones on Fox News. Let's take a look. Interviewing this guy about the Socialist.
What's your name?
This veteran.
Yes, sir. We thank you for your service. Tell us about this rise of socialism. How do you feel about it? Do you think that it's scary, or do you think voters are going to reject this?
I think the voters are not going to reject it because they have no idea what communism is. My family my father's side of the family was their whole lives under communism. People, and I blame the colleges. The colleges and the school system, they don't teach these kids what communism, where we are, how we became a country as what we are today. We came over here with nothing. My family worked hard, and here I am.
That's what we call the American dream, and we're so glad that they did. Yes, sir. Sir, how you doing?
Yeah. Well, I think
What's your name?
He's right. They don't know what it is. They're ignorant to it. That's one side of it, right? But we don't really have control of that. We have to focus on what can we control as conservatives. We can control our messaging when it relates to economic theory and theory of government. We need to be able to have the intellectual firepower to go toe-to-toe with these socialists like Hassan Piker and make a compelling case to young people, the people in his audience that are being seduced by this, that capitalism, not socialism, is actually the way to solve your problems. Yes, you're dealing with affordability, you're dealing with inflation. All of this stuff is real. I think that's one mistake we have, is that if we are trying to signal and say that, oh, just suck it up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, it's not really going to land. Even if it's true to some degree, it's not the way to win people over in mass like that. So I think we need to address the problem and acknowledge the problem first, but then prove to them that capitalism is a better alternative, which involves articulating the pitfalls and the dangers of socialism and where it's led historically. I hope that they're interested in that. I hope that these people are intellectually honest and are receptive to that. We're going to see. One of the things I wanted to ask you guys about, and I wanted to use these live streams as kind of a sounding board, is for content. You know, when we're going this weekend, there's going to be a protest in D.C. on July 4th, anti-Trump protest. I'm going to be going with my producer, and we're trying to figure out, what are we going to talk to these people about? What's the big thing on people's mind, or what's really going to resonate? What's an important question that we can ask and get an interesting response that adds to the conversation? So I wanted to ask you guys, before I even say that, go ahead and if you guys have suggestions of what you'd like me to ask when we go out there and interview them, please let me know in the chat here. I can't believe how stupid the Democrats are. They would turn our country into a third world country. Yeah. Well, it's the Democrat. It's funny that the Democrats are actually now grappling with this radical wing of their own party that they've lost control of. It's like they're letting the insane patients run the asylum now. And it's their fault for not being strong against them. Just like the right is rightfully strong against our fringes, right? Like the Groypers or whoever. We're very, we're cracking down on that. We do not let those people in. We do not let them win elections. We're drawing a hard line when it comes to our fringe. They did not draw a hard line when it came to their fringe. Remember, even like mainstream media outlets, MSNBC, CNN, were making excuses for Antifa. Antifa is the radical socialist communist militants on the left who are willing to go so far as to commit property damage and even violence against the police, violence against reporters, to see their agenda through. So they go a step beyond the keyboard warriors, and they actually are willing to bring about their socialist open borders utopia by any means necessary. And they were being defended by the establishment back in 2020, and even still probably now. Maybe like right now, this month is where that's going to start to change, because I think you're going to see establishment Democrats and their media mouthpieces on CNN and MSNBC, ABC News start to push back. But it's going to be too late. They've already let this foment. They've let their fringe become legitimized. And I think they're going to have to suffer the consequences. Now, hopefully all of America doesn't have to suffer those consequences too. But that goes back, to bring that back to what are we going to ask these protesters on July 4th? They claim that Trump is a fascist. Their rhetoric and the way that they look at him as if he is actually Adolf Hitler reincarnated. They could not, so my point is, they could not take their alarmism any further than it is. They use all of that, all of those buzzwords, those slogans. It's a four-alarm fire to them. Okay, if Trump is Hitler, if he's a fascist, it's July 4th. Our founding fathers rose up, took up arms against what they saw as a tyrannical dictator that they wanted to be free from. They took action. They took up guns. I want to ask these people, if Trump is as bad as you say, are you willing to take up arms against him? And I think they're going to give me one of two answers. Either they're going to say no, that Trump, whatever, like let's be peaceful, let's not get violent. But then it's like, okay, well, if he's really a fascist, if you really think he's Hitler, why wouldn't you take up arms against him? Like if you really believe the bullshit that you're saying, there's an incongruency there. And I just want to see, how do they explain their way out of that? What they would rather do is, most of them probably, is just dress up in crazy outfits like those frog suits and carry around a sign in front of the White House and just scream their heads off. And it's like fun for them. Also, I think a lot of them get paid to do that too. It's just business as usual for them. But I think that there's going to be some, I'm interested to see if there's some that actually would say yes, that this is the critical moment. Trump is a fascist. We need to take up arms against him. So I'm curious about that. And I also think that both of those possible answers are going to be very interesting on the political commentary, the political conversation that we're having right now. But let me know your thoughts about that. Let me just see. Oh, here's a question. Would you personally be willing to live under the system you advocate, like in a fully socialized healthcare, waitlist environment with your income, heavily redistributed? Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think a lot of them would probably say yes, because these people are not the big contributors to society. They're not really out to build something, to be great, to seek out the American dream. They're people who want to coast on your money and my money and everyone else's money that actually is contributing to the system. They would rather be that sort of leech on society. So I think that they would see themselves as thriving in that sort of socialist reality if it did come to fruition. Please ask people that if he's such a fascist dictator, how does the Supreme Court rule against him and him still be a dictator? Because those two things wouldn't actually happen. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, we still have checks and balances in the United States. And the fact that the Supreme Court ruled against him, and now this is creating a real obstacle for President Trump. He still has other avenues to pass his birthright citizenship agenda, to do away with it through Congress, which would be totally legal, and I hope that he does. But he's not just outright defying the court's order. He can't do that. Of course that's true. I mean, I think the easiest way to debunk it too, and I've done this in other videos, is just say, look, if he's a fascist and you guys are all out here in front of the White House, I mean, wouldn't he come and arrest you guys? Isn't this proof positive right now that you guys are protesting on the street, screaming at the White House that he's not a fascist? There's just so many ways to poke holes in it, but yeah, it's crazy. And then you look at what the Biden administration did to completely stamp out free speech, censoring people on social media who are asking questions about COVID, censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story that the New York Post broke, and not letting people even talk about that on social media. And, he went to Mark Zuckerberg. He went to the social media companies and said, hey, you guys need to reduce the reach and punish people who are talking about this. Trump has done nothing of the sort. And I hear all the time that they say, oh, he's trampling free speech. He's trying to get Jimmy Kimmel thrown off the air. It hasn't happened. He says these things like, oh, Bill Maher's a jackass. He should be fired. Jimmy Kimmel's a jackass. He shouldn't even have a show. But there's no follow-through. If there was follow-through, you can make a case, okay, he's trampling on free speech, but he's just talking shit. I mean, that's what he does. He's just putting his opinion out there, completely unfiltered, and He's just letting it go, but he's not going to enforce it. He's not going to do anything and send in the troops or send in the police to go arrest Bill Maher or Jimmy Kimmel. It's crazy. Fascist, when you dilute that word so much, it's not going to mean anything anymore. They're just hysterical with this stuff. How do you distinguish good state control from the regulatory favoritism like we already see in the banking, green energy subsidies, or big pharma? Yeah, that's a good question too. I mean, so I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but that the fact that Trump has kind of crossed that line of, I guess, bringing private sector businesses into the public sector, and with these AI companies, and is that an overreach that tramples on the free market? Arguably, yes. But I think that the gloves are kind of off, with ideological purity in terms of being a free market conservative. I have a lot of friends that are libertarians or true free market capitalists that are not happy with what Trump's doing. I don't know if I misunderstood your question, but if that's what you're getting at, the fact that, that he's kind of muddying the waters or not being a true free market capitalist because he's making deals with AI companies and energy companies and stuff, and there's government contracts, not just government contracts, but he is showing favoritism. He's picking winners and losers. That's kind of the charge against some of his economic policy. I think that has some credence. I would like to see Trump be a pure free market capitalist. And I think that he ran that way with Doge. I would like to see more follow through on Doge. I'd like to see them even more prominent than they are. I think it was kind of reeled back a little bit after Elon Musk left the scene. But cutting down bureaucracy, waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government is fantastic. And I know a lot of libertarians were disappointed with how that panned out, at least so far. He still has another 2.5 years in there, and we could see a lot more of that. I hope we do. I hope we see a ramp up towards cutting down bureaucratic waste in the federal government, because we desperately need that. So definitely let me know if you guys have any other ideas about what we should ask these crazy protesters this weekend.
What a beautiful shot we have.
Just wanted to show you guys this. This is Trump today in South Dakota at the Teddy Roosevelt Library.
This is the Rough Riders escorting the Beast, the president's vehicle.
Does not get better than this.
Beautiful winding road that takes you to the top of this hill, which is where the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library is. So this is just an extraordinary scene, and they could not have a more gorgeous day for this. I know it's really hot back east. It's about 84 degrees
That's
out
incredible.
here.
And it's funny because I actually think that Teddy Roosevelt and Trump have a lot of parallels with their policy, their kind of Republican populism. Teddy Roosevelt broke a lot of rules, and he did a lot of things that a lot of free marketists were not happy with, trust busting, tariffs, protectionism, things like that. And I think when you have a president in a certain moment, like President Trump is in this moment, you cannot perfectly prescribe ideology, economic ideology or political ideology to whatever is needed to resolve that moment in American politics. You kind of just have to speak softly and carry a big stick. And President Trump is definitely doing that, especially with a very Teddy Rooseveltian foreign policy too. I like what he's trying to do, trying to regain control of the Western Hemisphere, and making sure that our neighbors are not direct threats to us, and that they're friendly, and that we have control of our neighborhood over here, and in a way that other presidents haven't been willing to do. I think that the Venezuela operation was a massive success. There's talks of doing something similar in Cuba, and that's one of the reasons that Hassan Piker and Code Pink went to Cuba, to try to combat that sentiment. But I mean, he's going to do what he's going to do. And I think that, honestly, if we get Cuba back into being a liberal democracy with capitalism, the people are, what's the worst case scenario there? The people are going to have food on their plate. Their grocery stores are actually going to have reasonably priced food and fully stocked shelves. I think that they're desperate for it, honestly, at this point. Let's see. Chris Rabb, Socialist Democrat nominee running unopposed, Pennsylvania, on billionaires. He says they are petrified of attack. Well, are you going to attack them? Is that what this is?
Power. And we have so much power, despite this fascism, despite Trumpism and MAGA, despite the billionaires / Epstein class. We have so much power, and it scares these people. If it didn't scare them, why would they be worried about this exhibit right here? They could be worried about so many other things. They are petrified of Michael Cord. They are petrified of attack. They're petrified of young people. They're petrified of protesters. They're afraid of our collective power because they know that their money will not save them. Billionaires need us. We have no use for billionaires. None. They should not exist. They are an existential threat to participatory democracy and truly shared prosperity. So please know that no matter what they come out with, no matter what they do next, that we still have power, real power, not performative politics, not electoral politics as though that is some kind of a silver bullet to free us. It's not. But we have people power, and organized people beat organized money every time. Thank
you. We don't need the billionaires. Actually, you do. Because if you're talking about raising taxes, if you're talking about implementing socialism, you need capitalism to precede that, to build all of the capital that you're now going to fund your socialist centralized economy with. I mean, what an absolute moron. This is more about just creating a boogeyman or somebody to hate collectively. The billionaires, whatever that means. You need the billionaires. Like, who are you going to tax? You're raising taxes on who? The billionaires, meaning that you need them. You need people who were successful in the meritocracy of free market capitalism. Not a perfect meritocracy, but you need people who are successful, who create jobs to then tax, to steal their money, to give it to you and to give it to all your buddies. That's what you really, that's the necessity of socialism, that it follows capitalism. Even that's how Marx talked about it as well. It's that basically there's different stages. You know, there's different stages of human development, and communism is his endpoint. Socialism precedes that, and capitalist imperialism precedes that, and humanity will work in these stages successively and evolve to the point where they are communist. Well, what is it? Margaret Thatcher, said that socialism works great until you run out of other people's money to spend. That is absolutely true. So if you don't have the capital creators and you think that once the billionaires disappear or leave and take all their assets overseas or to other states, that you're going to be better off, the taxes are going to now just fall on the middle class, the working class people that you said that you were going to help. It's a snake eating its tail. I don't know, it's all these metaphors and stuff. We've heard all this stuff before, but I think that we truly need like a new capitalist manifesto. We need somebody, or many conservatives, to start messaging to young people this way and make a case for capitalism. Because people like this is Caleb Hammer, by the way. He is a financial podcaster. He's not even really political. I don't know if he's conservative or liberal. I think he might lean conservative. But what he does is he interviews these people who have terrible finances. They're in debt. They spend way too much on their credit card. They're just a total disaster. And he audits their bank account and says, here's what you got to do to get back on track. Well, frequently these blue-haired, crazy liberals will go on, and they are the most entitled, unserious, deranged people ever, and he doesn't even know what to say to them. It's like, your attitude is why you're failing. Let me just show you guys this clip.
Your parents named you that?
My chosen family did. It's
Who
cool.
did you choose to be a family?
Well,
What's
in the
that?
queer community, yeah, you don't always get to maintain your most close relatives, your blood relatives. So
Well,
you
did they
build.
dismiss you?
No.
Well, it sounds like you maintain them.
I do not speak with my parents.
You chose. They did not choose.
Their decisions have made our relationship what it is today.
What did they choose?
They chose extremism over their child.
Okay, says the blue hair. Got it. Okay, which usually qualifies towards more extreme people. Usually, what's their extremism?
Their extremes are just not very minority inclusive, despite what they might say. Their actions say otherwise.
What's their actions that are so extreme? They kill minorities?
They're not helping them.
Well, not helping's extreme? Wait, what's helping?
We've had extended conversations about what politics looks like in the world, and when they discuss it, the things that they say or choose not to say are pretty detrimental, yeah.
That doesn't sound like extremism. You know what the word extremism means?
Yeah.
What do they do that's extreme?
How do you help
There was
these
once
people?
upon a time when Kamala came out with...
Kamala, thank you. You're gonna get canceled for that.
She was talking about how our current president wanted to have generals more like dictators of old.
Okay.
And I asked my parents what they felt about that, and they said they needed the context. And I said, under what context is it okay to like want
Well,
Hitler's
maybe
generals?
they wanted to understand if he was doing his classic grifting or if he was being an actual dictator, which would be bad. But we know, if you follow politics, which I assume you do, he is a rifting guy, and you take like a grain of salt with pretty much everything, including saying peace is close in Iran, which I think you would agree with.
And also like
So-
threatening to nuke them, an entire population.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you help these people. I mean, if you're going to take that seriously, Trump just came out the other day and said that he would be the best communist ever. So does that mean you love him all of a sudden? The guy, he's just joking around. He's an entertaining guy. So, I mean, don't even get me started on that. Like, how the left loves to take Trump out of context and choose to take this one thing he said very seriously when he was clearly joking, and these other things they just completely ignore, things that would make him look a lot better, that are meant to be taken seriously. So yeah, this blue-haired young person, this is who is electing these Democrat primary winners, and you can see that there's a lot to unravel there before you actually reach them. Because I truly believe that your personal politics stem from who you are as a person, your personal values, your experience, how you see the world. It's not just like you just sign up one day to become a Republican or a Democrat, completely divorced from anything else that happened to you or who you are and who you associate with. So you really have this knot, this very tangled knot that you have to address to reach these people. And maybe they're unreachable. Maybe it's not even worth untangling that knot. We have to signal to the middle, the reasonable people. But if I had to talk to this girl and say, I mean, maybe you shouldn't disassociate from your parents because they basically asked for context over what President Trump said. You know, it seems like you probably just hate your parents to begin with. You know, you want to be a rebel. You think that it's cool. You want to dress like this and dye your hair like this. You're joining a tribe. You know, you're trying to become part of like this out group, this tribe of people. And maybe that's really the only place you've ever received or experienced social acceptance. You know, a lot of people will say, let me just go on a quick tangent here. A lot of people will say that all these protesters are paid. I agree that I think from what I can gather, talking to hundreds of them, I think a lot of them are paid. It's the organizers that are paid. They're part of NGOs and networks where they're definitely being compensated. That's been proven by other journalists at this point, like James O'Keefe and Nate Friedman, who do tremendous work. But a lot of them, at least half of them, I would say, it's even sadder than that. They have nothing else going on for them in their lives, and they go to a protest as a social event. It's how they find friends. And what better way to find friends if you're a crazy, deranged, Trump-hating person than to go to a huge crowd of hundreds or thousands of people just like you you don't have to pay them to go there. It's like it's the best thing that they have to do on a Saturday morning or in the middle of a day, like of a work day too. They don't have jobs, a lot of them. So there's serious personal problems that then create these politics, mental health problems as well. So it's the mentally ill that are electing Democrat socialist like Malat Quiros. That's my theory on it. Just having talked to a large sample size of these people, not even to be mean. And honestly, I wish that we could help them. And if you look at Charlie Kirk and how he communicated with a lot of these people, I think that that's the right thing to emulate. We need to be compassionate. We need to be good Christians. And these people can be saved, I think. We need to pray for them. We need to offer an on-ramp into sanity if they decide that they're at rock bottom and they don't want to destroy America and destroy themselves and associate with these deranged people. So I always try to have a very compassionate approach when I talk to them as much as I can. Guys like this, I mean, obviously he's a candidate, but like the organizers of this are truly malignant people. And people like Neville Roy Singham, who is the Shanghai-based American billionaire who has funneled hundreds of millions of dollars into left-wing activism in America. I mean, that guy's just evil. He's like George Soros, basically. So I don't know what you do about people like him. I mean, we could expose the fundraising networks and say, hey, look, a lot of this is not organic. This is all a big show to try to make it look like it's a lot more big and important than it actually is. But you do have a lot of the true diehards, the people who really do believe in this stuff, and it's concerning. And I think that you almost need to be like their therapist to actually reach them. You need to fix the chronic issues and the mental issues in their life and then say, look, you can become a productive, valuable person, like if you just apply yourself to something. You know, find out what your talents are and get a job and start contributing to society. Or maybe once you have enough skills and you have leveled up and you've gotten out of your dark state, then you can start a business and you can employ other people. I mean, imagine you want to help people, you want to spread goodness around the world, around the country. What better way than to create jobs for people? You can actually have an idea, take action, take a risk, and build a business that employs people so that they can feed their families. That sounds like the most compassionate, tolerant, liberal thing that you could do. But they don't see it like that. They see it as exploitation, and they're very far gone. This is incredible. Let's see. That's what I want to see on America's 250th birthday. President Trump dancing in front of the Rough Riders. It does not get better than that. That's incredible. Ilhan Omar, congratulations to Malat Quiros on your historic victory. Just the beginning. Here's the problem too with these socialists. They're young, they're attractive, they're good-looking young people who are very good communicators. I'll just say it. Maybe you guys disagree with me. A lot of them, it's like an AOC factory. They have very strong messaging and marketing that's winning people over, and I think that this ad is probably going to be an example of that.
If she didn't win, I guess we'll never step up the swamp to the motherfucking stage. Cut my mic off cause I'm about to misbehave. Will she ever lose, man? I guess we'll never know. Will she lose her cool? I guess we'll never. I hopped out the swamp, gave a bitch props. Where you been? Will she ever lose, man? I guess we'll never know. Guess we'll never know. Guess we'll never see the day that falls.
Actually, I just realized whatever this music is, I don't even know what the song is, but it might copyright this video. So let's stop it there. But as you can see, what I mean by they're young and good looking, they're not fat old men, like a lot of our politicians are. They're actually young people. They're smart and good communicators. I don't think that they're dumb. I think that they have nefarious intentions. And maybe a lot of them really believe what they're doing is good. It's just, it's something else. I'm not trying to overly psychoanalyze these people, but I think if we can understand as conservatives where this comes from, that is the first step in being able to combat it and message against it. because I think in some ways we're dropping the ball on that. I've seen a lot of people like Dave Portnoy or Kevin O'Leary come out on Fox Business and Fox News and talk about how crazy and bad these socialists are. Granted, they're 100% correct, and I like both those guys. But they're not really the best messengers. They're rich, successful people. They've already made their hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, and they're not going to be convincing voices for young people who are struggling to afford rent to sign up for capitalism. If anything, it might push people away. So I think that there's no perfect messenger, but we need a better messenger for this anti-socialist messaging that we need. All right, guys, I don't want to just keep, let me take a quick look at what's on Twitter here and see if there's anything else that's worth showing. The two reasons I wanted to live stream like this is I wanted to ask you guys and put it out there like, hey, we're going to go do more Man on the Street content this week. If you have any ideas. Actually, let me just see if I missed any of those. I wanted to open up that to you guys, and maybe we'll do that in the future so you guys can be kind of part of how we create content in here and let me know what you want to see. But the other thing is so that I can kind of show you and turn into content how I look through the news every day. I mean, that's how my day usually goes is I'm opening up the computer, I'm writing newsletters, but I'm also making videos and looking for content to comment on and to turn into videos that go on this channel and our PolitiBrawl Daily channel. Those are the two that I'm managing right now. So if you guys haven't subscribed over at PolitiBrawl Daily for our commentary videos, make sure you guys go ahead and do that. Would you be willing, so here's a question to ask the protesters, would you be willing to wait in a line possibly for hours for state-controlled groceries where you get rations and have no free will to choose your food? Yeah, I think that's I think hopefully the answer is no, but they need to be faced with the reality of socialism. I think a lot of them, they deflect and they say, well, Cuba and Venezuela and the USSR are not the examples of socialism that we want to see. But what they will say is that the Scandinavian countries are socialist countries and they're successful. Completely false. And I just listened to a great Charlie Kirk debate with a socialist professor this morning where they really got into that topic about why the Scandinavian countries are not truly socialist. They were at one point, and then they had a massive economic recession in the 90s. And this is Sweden, Norway, Denmark. They kind of all experienced this as they embrace socialism and these ultra-high taxes. What you see in modern Scandinavian countries, the Scandinavian countries that the socialists want to emulate, is very high income taxes that I guess culturally those people are willing to pay for. They think that they recoup that in public services and public goods and programs. Okay. That's fine. I wouldn't want to be taxed 60 or 70% of what I earn, but if they're willing to do it, then so be it. But what you have is a very free private sector. Corporate taxes are very low. Also, they don't have minimum wage. They don't have federal minimum wage. And there's a lot less animosity between unions and businesses in those countries. So it's a completely different situation. And it's not true to say that they are examples of socialist countries. They have very big welfare states. They have a lot of social programs that are paid for by individuals who are making high incomes. But corporate taxes are low. Everything else that's necessary to have a thriving free market is there. And that's why they had to do that because they had to recover out of the recession that they experienced. Same thing that China went through. They were killing sparrows to try to stop them from eating all the grain because they needed to feed people. There were people starving. And then the insects got overpopulated and ate all the grain anyway. And then they had a massive insect problem. So that's where communist China started. They had to learn it all the hard way. But now what you see in modern China is actually a very open market to a large extent. And there's still a lot of government ownership of everything, but they've taken what they needed to from capitalism to make their society actually function, and they still have the communist pretense over the top of it. But what was I saying before that? Basically, Oh, yeah. So they're wrong to point to Scandinavia. Also, it's very hard to immigrate to those countries, right? So if you want to have open borders and have millions and millions of people coming into the U.S. to put onto our social welfare programs, that's untenable. We cannot afford that. But Scandinavia arguably can afford it because it's very hard to become a immigrant in Scandinavia. Very rigorous, extended process to become a naturalized citizen of those countries and be entitled to their social welfare state. So it's totally different. I don't think that they're aware of those nuances, but they see, hey, look, they have a lot of government handouts. That's good. We want that here. But to actually recreate that in America, you'd have to close the border. I'd say do away with minimum wage, deregulate the private sector tremendously, as they have, and lower corporate taxes even more. But I don't even want to see that rearrangement just so that we can have a massive an even bigger social safety net. We already spend most of our budget, at least half, on social safety net programs. Everyone always says it's the military. It's not. We only spend about $1 trillion a year on the military. It's like 4 or 5 times that for our social programs federally. So there's a lot to dispel, and I really don't. These people don't even know what the word socialism and capitalism means, let alone all of these nuances. They have no idea what they're voting for, but they're voting for attractive personalities like AOC and this other lady who we just showed, Malat Kiros. Greg Price says she has a law degree from Notre Dame, was fired from her law firm for publicly calling them out for not supporting Palestine after October 7th. Maybe that's not the best time to call for support of Palestine. And the 29-year-old made a total of $30,000 last year while being $250,000 in debt, and Democrats elected her to Congress. Great. So I want to hear what her economic policy is, because she's, you know what, I give her like a year or two and she'll probably be a multimillionaire, just like Ilhan Omar and all the rest of them. Ayanna Presley. They go in there broke and in debt, and then you give them like 2 years and they figure out how to insider trade, I guess, and launder money, and also commit welfare fraud in Minnesota, allegedly. All of this is allegedly. And then they have $30 million in the bank. So I'm not worried about her financially. I think she'll do just fine in Congress if she follows suit with the other squad members. But, oh yeah, and this is her interview. This is a piece of her interview with Hassan Piker. Now, what Hassan does is he brings these candidates on. He brought 11 of these candidates so far that have won onto his show, and he gives them this ideological purity test to see, are you radical enough? Are you left-wing enough to get my endorsement? And so I think that's what this is right here. Let me see.
Nothing to address the immigration. Like, abolishing ICE is just one step, right? Democrats have been in power multiple times over the last few decades and did nothing to address the immigration reform that we actually
ICE
need.
Expenditures, increased spending.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think there has to be an immediate pathway for every single undocumented immigrant that's here in this country today that does not require them to shell out thousands of dollars to go through the process, for it to take decades at a time to be able to get to citizenship. An immediate pathway to citizenship, and then just abolishing ICE is just one.
And then you have the other one from New York, Daria-Liza Chevalier, who said that under no circumstances should people be deported. She doesn't want to see any deportations, even for criminals, murderers, and rapists. These people are pretty lockstep when it comes to immigration. But think about that. If there's an immediate pathway to amnesty for all of the illegal immigrants in this country right now, that means that they'll be able to vote. Who do you think they're going to vote for? They're going to vote for the people who were supporting that they get amnesty. It's basically going to create a permanent voting bloc loyal to the Democrat Party. And I think that that's why they're against the SAVE Act. That's why we see all these things. It's not a coincidence that they are against the SAVE Act, for amnesty for illegal immigrants, against ICE, want to make it as easy as possible for people to rig the elections, take 30 days to count the votes, mail-in ballots. You just got to connect the dots. It's very easy to see what they're playing at here. So anyway, next time I do this, I'll probably have some more longer clips pulled up that I want to talk about. But you know what? Let me just see if there's any chats that I missed. Oh yeah, actually there is. live stream the interviews. Yeah, I could do that. Would you guys like to see those live? Not as opposed to posting the video, the full-length video itself, but I could do both, actually. That's something I've considered. It's just, it takes a little bit more of a setup, but I could do that if you guys want to see that. People don't understand what communism really is. It's not an ideology. This is the cover story. It's a pretext for seizing and holding power under the guise of compassion. Then the abuse begins. Yeah, I mean, well, I think that can also be an ideology too. It's kind of like, it's a theory of governance. It's a it's an economic theory, and it's a theory of governance, is how I would characterize it. But yes, you're right. And I mean, the game is very clear to see. It's always been the educated elites that have been trying to sell people communism or socialism. I mean, they say socialism like it's this benign, lesser form of communism, but the USSR was the United Soviet Socialist Republics, right? What is it? Well, however you say it in Russian, but like, yeah, the United Soviet Socialist Republics. So they were a socialist republic in name, whatever the hell that means. The National Socialists, by the way, they stuck a nice adjective under next to socialism, and they tried to make that sound good too. That was the Nazis. And don't let anybody tell you that Adolf Hitler and the Nazis were not left-wing socialists, because they absolutely were. For universal health care, for massive public programs, all of this stuff. They wanted to run the government exactly synonymously with how Bernie Sanders and Zoran Mamdani want to run the government. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Most Democrats don't agree with abolishing ICE. Lord have mercy. I hope not. I think a lot of them say stuff like that because their base wants them to. The ultimate inevitable end game of my enemy is my friend. Yeah. Oh, whoops. So, here's a thought I had. I don't know what you guys are going to think about this, but like, I think that as we're seeing the rise of socialism, the legitimizing of socialism, and the institutionalizing of socialism, these are socialists that are going to be now members of Congress or mayors of major American cities. It legitimizes that political ideology. How do we respond to that? I think that in some ways we need to return to William F. Buckley, Ronald Reagan, and the old guard of conservatives that were very effective during the Cold War at messaging against the communist. It's tried and true. It's a proven method of success against these radicals. But we need to have a modern iteration of that. And we really haven't been talking about this a lot on the right. And I think, in some ways I have empathy for this. Like, a lot of people's eyes glaze over when you start talking about economics. I don't know how many people consider themselves capitalist. I know a lot of businessmen do, a lot of billionaires do, but it can't just be them that are the defenders of the American free enterprise system, because it affects all of us. Even working class people and middle class people are the beneficiaries of a prosperous free enterprise system. Capitalism over the last century, what it has done is, maybe it's true to say, it has widened the gap between the ultra wealthy and the poor. But it has raised the level of the poor far beyond anything that they could expect to achieve under any other system, including socialism. So the fact that poor people in America, for the most part, almost universally have access to food, shelter, have a car in their driveway, have a TV in their bedroom, like that, the lower 10% of America still has access to things that would make them be considered rich to the rest of the world, especially to the third world. But to most of these socialist countries, the poorest people in America are doing a hell of a lot better than the people in those socialist countries, even like the middle class or rich people in those countries. So that's the effects of capitalism. Now, what the socialists always talk about is wealth inequality, which I think is a red herring. It's not really what we should be focusing on for a couple of reasons. One is, Elon Musk having $1 trillion is great for him, right? And maybe I envy him. Maybe I don't think it's fair, right? Why can't I have $1 trillion? I want some of that. And also, he doesn't deserve that. Okay, if that's what I thought. But actually, him having $1 trillion doesn't affect my ability to build a livelihood for myself or to start a business for myself, to compete with him even. It's when the oligarchs, as Bernie Sanders would say, get in bed with the government and create monopolies, impenetrable monopolies that are anti-competition. That's where I would draw the line and say that we cannot venture into cronyism. The socialists being against cronyism, I think, is totally legitimate. But what we need to do is actually get back to, I would say, like a pretty clean version of a free market if we want to have a meritocracy in our economy and competition. We need to have a system that rewards merit and has free competition for all participants, people who want to work hard and actually build things in America. I mean, that's the system that's going to work. So wealth inequality is kind of irrelevant to that. Let the rich get richer. If they want to have 5 Porsches and a private jet, as long as it doesn't impede on me and my ability to succeed, then I would say fair game. So let's look at the overall picture of how the poor and the middle class are faring in this country, and what system have they been prosperous under? Has it been capitalism or socialism? Pretty clearly capitalism. The West has been the champions of the world for economic opportunity for a century now. And why do you think millions and millions of people from around the world want to come to America? It's for economic opportunity, which we owe to our free enterprise system. I think if we became a socialist country, maybe we wouldn't have a problem with the border anymore because nobody would want to come here. We would have absolute economic destruction and poverty and famine and the failure of a centralized economy that can't beat the market or can't even produce what the market would be able to naturally, the free market. The invisible hand, that's what I'm trying to think of. Voters personally experience the consequences of their choice, usually results in them waking up. Yeah, it's just a question of like how long does that take and what is the collateral damage? I would like to see, the cat's out of the bag here. I think we're going to have to see these people learn the hard way, in New York especially, and maybe these other places. But I don't want to see New York plunge into crime as they try to defund the NYPD and the homelessness population get out of control as they are soft on crime and not addressing the root problems of homelessness. I don't want to see billionaires and businesses and people with high-paying jobs leave that city, so it just becomes like a hollowed-out hellhole. It does not deserve that. I mean, I personally have an affinity for New York because I grew up next to it. I'm not from New York. I'm from Connecticut. But I think it's an amazing city. And just so much music and culture and incredible stuff there. And I don't know, maybe you guys hate New York, but I don't want to see it be punished by stupid people who were elected into power by other stupid people. The city does not deserve that. And there are good people in New York, in the Bronx and in Staten Island especially. That is Trump country. It's part of New York City. It's one of the 5 boroughs. But there are people, there's like Albanians in the Bronx, there's Italians in Staten Island who hate communism. And they hate socialists, they hate Mamdani, and they love Trump, frankly. So don't get the wrong idea about New York. There's people there that are worth saving, and I'm going to keep fighting for them. I don't want to just give up on New York City.
Ron Mamdani, do you consider him to be a leader? 3 candidates who won were also backed by the New York City mayor, Zohran Mamdani. Do you consider him to be a leader in your party?
Look, he's the mayor of a major city in the United States, so it's hard to say that he doesn't belong in that leadership role. But I think people should pay attention to the fact that what I was saying earlier about being a fighter, about talking about and doing something about lowering costs, remember, Zoran Mamdani won his election on the same night that Mikey Sherrill won her election as governor of New Jersey and Abigail Spanberger won her election as governor of Virginia. You wouldn't say that they have much in common, those three, and yet, here's what they had in common. They were out there talking about the very same issues, and that's the issues of the high cost of and the challenges that people are facing just raising their families on the incomes that they have with prices rising through the roof.
Three candidates who won were also backed by the New York City.
No, it is very effective marketing. It's going to be, it's really tough. But I do think that like people who say like Kevin O'Leary, like stop buying $30 lunches and $8 coffees every day, that plays a role too. It definitely does. Maybe we should cut government spending, city spending in New York as well. Basically, all of the adult decisions, the big, bad, mean decisions that the adults have to make, they don't want to do. And they are just trying to blame their scapegoat. The ultimate and inevitable endgame. Oh, sorry, I already read that one. Please start some rumors that Trump is going to host a No Kings rally, and he's also going to host a trans rally. Ask if they'll go. I like that. I think that they would be stumped by that. They wouldn't know exactly what to do there. Wealth inequality is the necessary vice of capitalism. Yeah, but I think it's important we ask ourselves, is it a real problem? You know? Like, if blue-collar working people can afford to feed their families and afford to pay their mortgage and afford gas, and they're living a good life and they're happy, I don't think it really matters how rich the rich get, as long as it doesn't impede on them. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong there, but like that's kind of, I feel like that's a very obvious question to ask. Does wealth inequality actually matter? I think what we're really dealing with there is just envy and jealousy by a lot of young people, these socialists who, they have master's degrees, they went to Columbia, and now they've come out into the world and they're not as successful as they wanted to be. And maybe it's not all their fault too. I'll give them a lot of slack and the benefit of the doubt. They're over-credentialed, highly educated people who feel entitled to elite roles in society. And I think that we've overproduced that class of people because we've mass-prescribed college educations to everybody in America. And we've made it as easy as possible for people to make financially poor decisions, taking out massive student loans to go to school. Not that college is all bad. I think it has a lot of negatives. College is not right for everybody. And I think it also has a lot of problems, especially liberal arts departments just being propaganda machines. You're not actually getting the true value of an education because you're just getting whitewashed, one-sided political theory shoved down your throat. I remember I even had math classes in college that became political because the professor couldn't shut up about how he didn't like President Trump. It was crazy. And history classes. I took it was like a generic, gen ed, or what is it called? Yeah, general education requirement. It's like a gen ed requirement. Like, oh, this class is just to check a box that I took this class in this area. American history course, it was all about the disenfranchisement of women in America and how horrible we were to the slaves. But we missed everything else that America ever succeeded at or did well. It was all political messaging. The teacher hated me. I think I wrote a paper for that class about how women should be more responsible about making decisions with who they have sex with instead of abortions. Like, we read a book about this woman in history who had an abortion, and my take on it was like, oh yeah, maybe she should have been more careful. And the teacher just lost her mind and gave me an F on the paper. Even though I did the assignment, it's just she didn't agree with what I wrote. So I ran it up the chain and eventually got it changed to a B. So big success there, B plus on that paper. More and more we will find out how big of a loss Charlie Kirk will be. He could resonate with young people and combat communism ideas. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. I think Charlie Kirk wasn't just an amazing an amazing person, an amazing Christian, an amazing conservative, but he is tangibly going to leave a void in our movement that we desperately need. First of all, I don't think it's a coincidence that Republicans started all this infighting about foreign policy as soon as he passed away, as soon as he was murdered. So we had the Republican schism, which I think is largely unproductive, in my opinion. I would like us to get back to attacking the left and criticizing the left and rhetorically debating them rather than cannibalizing ourselves. But that happened after Charlie Kirk was murdered. But also his ability to truly communicate to people my age and younger, people in college too, and sell them on these ideas that we so desperately need to sell young people on. Not in a phony way or like a used car salesman way, but like articulating to them, why is capitalism good? Why should you be proud to be an American? In even religious concepts too, preaching the gospel, getting people invited into the conservative tent is something that he did better than anybody. And I think that he did change a lot of minds. I bet you in that sea of people that would go to watch Charlie Kirk debate people on campus, even if they didn't partake, maybe even some of the people that tried to debate him, they were surprised by his kindness and his openness to hear what they had to say, but also they were probably persuaded by his compelling arguments. I mean, that guy was like, he was just so smart. I mean, and his ability to communicate his worldview in this way that really made sense and spoke not down to people in a condescending way, but in a way that connected with them and related to them. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to do a fraction of that here. And that's what I would like to see PolitiBrawl to come into that fight and be able to do even a fraction of what Charlie Kirk was able to do. But, we're trying our best. I don't know who else is doing it as well, nearly as well as Charlie Kirk did. And that is, we are feeling that, I think, culturally as a country. I'm 62 years old, 62-year-old Englishman. I visited New York several times during the 1980s. It was a great place to be. Last November, I chose Texas and Florida as my destinations. Yeah, I don't blame you. Florida's beautiful. Texas is always great. New York used to be great under Rudy Giuliani. You know, he cleaned up the city. It was actually a place that was safe and clean for a while. And I don't know how New Yorkers looked at that and said, I'll trade that for socialism. I'll trade that for Zoran Mamdani or Eric Adams or whoever. But you have a lot of wacky people in New York. And I think there's a lot of good people there. There's a lot of really wacky people. So if you ever do go back to New York, just be ready. It's going to be an interesting trip as you're communicating with people. You have a lot of champagne socialists in New York too, people who are excessively wealthy, and basically their politics is a form of self-preservation. So what they do is they say, well, I'm a socialist and I support the working class, as they're living in their $2 million penthouse, and they have a house out in the Hamptons too. And basically their whole thing is, don't come for me. I'm one of the good ones. Don't tax me. Don't break down my door. Don't BLM riot at my apartment building, because I'm on your side. So yeah, go fight the capitalists. Go fight Ken Griffin and Trump supporters. They're the bad guys. Stay away from me. I'm with you guys. And even in DC, it's funny. Like you'll see these multi-million-dollar row houses. You know, each of them costs like $5 million minimum, $5 million plus. So the people living in there, for the most part, are extremely well off. Probably working in defense, working for the government bureaucrats, what have you. And they all put BLM signs on their front porch when the BLM riots were happening as a way to like ward off the riots. Like, yeah, we're the rich elites, but we're on your side. Trust us, you know? It's so phony. And I think that's one of the problems with the people voting in New York. They wanted Cuomo, but now, I mean, they're not going to vote for a Republican. They're not going to vote for somebody like Rudy Giuliani, and they're probably like, hey, you know what? We'll go with the socialist because the last thing we want here is a Republican. Also, Trump isn't exactly killing it on affordability, but I'm reading something here. Also, Trump isn't exactly killing it on affordability, but this didn't happen with Trump. Proves have pretty much been the same. Prices, I think. Yeah, prices have pretty much been the same besides COVID during Biden, us when prices skyrocketed, letting Dems put politics. Sorry, it's a little bit jumbled there. Yeah, I mean, Trump isn't exactly killing it on affordability. I don't want to say whether I agree or disagree with that. What I will say is he could be doing better. So, for instance, tariffs and protectionism. I think that that's an example of us, or the Trump administration rather, meeting the moment of what he's trying to accomplish when it comes to global commerce. And what comes along as a byproduct of that is short-term domestic economic pains. But if you're trying to tackle the problem of the establishment over the past several decades offshoring all of this American industries to China and third world countries, hollowing out the middle of America, and now our allies and trade partners are taking advantage of us by tariffing us, and we put reciprocal tariffs on them. This trade war, this trade negotiation play has had effects on consumer prices. Of course, the Iranian conflict had short-term effects on gas, although I just filled up my car yesterday and was surprised to see it was almost $1 down. And that's what we were saying the whole time. Like, yeah, we're in war right now. And not only are we in war, but we are in war with a place that has control of a major trade route where a lot of oil comes through. And also maybe some of these oil companies were gouging prices. I know President Trump accused many of them of that. But it was a temporary situation. So we had to do what we had to do. We had to reconcile our foreign policy goals with short-term economic pain. So as long as that's not sustained, I didn't want to see the Iranian conflict go on and on and on forever. And right now we're still kind of in a tentative situation where we're not really sure where we stand. Every day it's like, oh, we have a peace deal, we're good again, and now we're bombing each other, we're droning each other. But I think that it's clear that the Trump administration's intention is not to continue this indefinitely. We're trying to bring an end to it proactively, which at this point is the best that we can do. Politics is the religion of the left. Interesting. Yeah, I think leftists who tend to not be religious, not all of them, of course, but I think these socialists are a-religious, or atheists rather, a-religious. They're atheists or they're Muslim. But I also think that a lot of them are like performatively Muslim, if I had to guess. Darya-Liza Chevalier, I think, is Hispanic, but she converted to Islam because her friend told her to. I think that helps her communicate with the Muslim voting blocs in her district. Politically advantageous. I don't know if she's going to a mosque every day, but leftists tend to be atheists, and they replace that religious position in their life with trust in the government. They think that the government can serve everything, everyone's needs. They think that that's the answer to everything. So yeah, I think that their politics, and we see also how more rabid they are when it comes to politics, being against Trump. I mean, just look at these people who are calling for the death of Trump and, saying that he's a fascist, he's a Hitler dictator, all this crazy stuff. Like I said, that is the most hyperbolic you can get. If you said, hey, left-wingers, why don't you turn up the volume on your hatred for Trump? They couldn't do it. That's as high as it goes. When have we ever been like that? At least, I'm a pretty right-wing guy, conservative Christian. I've never felt that way about any Democrat. Obama, Biden, nobody in Congress. I don't want them to die. I actually, I wish them well. I hope they and their families are good and they're healthy. You guys have really bad ideas. You've done a lot of bad things to hurt this country, but I don't wish any ill will on you. And I'm certainly not going to spend hours of my time out screaming and protesting at you. If anything, I'll make a video explaining why what you said was a lie or why your ideas are stupid. But conservatives are just not as crazy as left-wingers are. I think that they take it too far. They have a special hatred of Trump and his supporters, and they just want to condemn the people that they already look down on people like us, especially like blue-collar Christians, white people. They already hate these demographics and try to blame them for everything that's wrong with this country. And Trump is just kind of like the symbol of all of that. I think, is this a super chat? This might be my first super chat from Marcus Coach or Coke. Thank you so much. Please live stream the interview. Also, would you say hi and happy birthday to Ruby Cook? That's my daughter. She'll love this. Hi and happy birthday, Ruby Cook. That's incredible. I hope you have a great birthday. And I hope that these socialists that are winning everywhere do not ruin your birthday. Stay strong. Keep believing in America. We're going to win this. America always wins. Thank you so much for the super chat there. If a Dem wins in 2028, you will see the fall of America and we will have to fight for it back. Yeah. Well, you know what I will say, and this kind of goes into what I was mentioning before about, like, would these lefties who hate Trump so much actually consider taking up arms? I think that the right would. Like, if we actually got to the breaking point, the right are the ones who, we're not going to go out there and performatively protest and tantrum and everything, right? But when shit really hits the fan and there is totalitarian dictatorship level of abuse by the government, and they want to take away our guns, or they want to, enforce a communist takeover and confiscate people's property, that's when the right is going to show up. Hate to say it, but I don't even want to imagine a country like that. I hope we never get to that point. But we will be there when it matters to defend liberty and freedom and free enterprise and American values. We're not going to put up with it, right? So, and I'm not promoting that. I really hate political violence. As somebody who's a public figure, becoming a public figure, trying to, build a personal brand in the political space, I don't want some left-winger to kill me or threaten my family or anything like that. And that goes both ways. I don't wish ill will on anybody. Again, it should be peaceful, rhetorical debate. But in that in that hypothetical scenario, I think the right would, they would use their Second Amendment rights for what it's meant for. But not before it's actually necessary. We do what the government trained us to do. Again, don't live stream pre-recorded and broadcast as live. Never be live in public. Yeah, it's not that much of a difference, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe you can tell me what your thoughts are there with that. I have done it before. It's not that much of a difference. It's like we're using the phone, pretty low profile equipment. Yeah, live free or die trying. I agree. So it's just a matter of if we're live, if it's being broadcast live, or if we're pre-recording it to be edited and posted afterwards. But we can also take that live footage, edit it, and post it. One of the concerns there is that the quality of the footage sometimes goes in and out when you're live. So you risk having a really good interview maybe get corrupted or get fuzzy, or the resolution goes down. But I mean, if we can get good numbers going live and you guys want to watch that, then I would consider doing that, especially at a big protest event like this where it's happening live. I feel like that's a little bit more engaging because it's actually happening right now. You guys can see what's going on as it's unfolding. Yeah, you know what? That's interesting. So that I've seen that happen to actually some of my colleagues, but that was during the BLM protest, like the actual riots. So let me just give you guys a quick story. So when I started at the Daily Caller, which is a conservative outlet here in DC, you guys might be familiar. Tucker Carlson actually started it in 2010, way back in the day. That's where I got my start. When the 2020 riots broke out here in DC, as soon as George Floyd was killed, they were storming the White House. They were breaking down police barriers, and it was total chaos. They were setting fire to buildings. They set fire to the church. And several of us in the newsroom wanted to go out there and get footage of it. And what happened was we saw other reporters there. I actually saw a Fox News reporter get chased away as soon as people figured out what outlet he was with. He got threatened and chased down the street. And by 10, 11 o'clock at night, going up to midnight, there weren't any other news outlets conspicuously out there. And I would say they probably weren't out there at all because of what happened next. So that point of the night is when the rioters, the peaceful protesters, would go and start looting Walgreens and Verizon, and they would break into buildings. They would set trash cans on fire, smash the window at the trash can. They tried to set fire to a very famous restaurant right 1 block away from the White House that I really like their burgers. I forget what it's called. I haven't been there in a couple years. But they tried to set it on fire. They put fireworks on the patio, and they threw fireworks at the restaurant. Anyway, so when people were looting and destroying stuff, most of the media outlets, the big media outlets that you've heard of, were not there. It was just us undercover interns and journalists that were just kind of blending in. We had to like dress up like Antifa so that we wouldn't get killed or beat up. And then after that, when I would post that to Twitter, at the time it was Twitter, I would have Fox News and CNN and the Boston Globe and like other outlets reach out to me saying, hey, can we use this footage? Can we use this footage? So it doesn't mean that there were no undercover journalists out there as well, but I think that we were kind of leading the charge at that time with this after hours, violent looting, destruction footage, because there wasn't a lot of coverage of that beyond what we produced and several other independent journalists who were brave enough to go out there at that time. So anyway, during that, some people were live streaming and they would get confronted by Antifa, and I saw that happen a couple times. So you're right. I think a protest like this, like a general, idiot parade, anti-Trump thing in the middle of the day is going to be a lot less threatening in that regard. So, yeah, put a blue wig on. I mean, if you guys have seen the video I did recently where I'm wearing like anti-ICE pins or like the big gay communist fist, the rainbow flag stuff, like that's a good way to get people to talk to you and to blend in. That is one strategy to try to assimilate. Although usually a few steps into the conversation, they kind of know what you're up to. Not that I'm trying to lie to anybody. I'm just asking, like, here's a fair question. Why do you believe what you believe? Like, okay, you guys think Trump's a fascist. Would you take up arms like the Founding Fathers did? Because if it's as bad as you say, you might want to consider that. But anyway, yeah. Going in the sky sometimes works. So you know what, guys? I love that we got like 40, 50, 60 people here on the live stream. This is incredible. Definitely going to do this more often, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I have to send out our evening newsletter on PolitiBrawl on Substack out right now. If you guys haven't been over to our Substack, by the way, Substack, if you're looking for a uncensored free speech platform, Substack is the place to be. It is completely, there's like no rules on it. They have all kinds of opinions and different publishers from all across the political spectrum. We love it. It's kind of like we use it as our home base website, and then we'll link to our YouTube videos from there. But it's kind of like the core of this media company that we're trying to build here. So definitely follow us on Substack. If you guys need the link, or if you just go to substack.com and search for PolitiBrawl, you'll find it right there. We have a very big audience. We're doing, we're trying to grow as fast as we can, but we've been blessed with already a great sizable audience, very engaged audience, so we're doing good. And it's a kind of a place where, like, I'll write every day. I'll pick 4 or 5, maybe 6 headlines that I think are the most important or most interesting, and just kind of summarize them for you guys, linking out to sources, credited sources. So it's a good way to kind of get your daily news digest just on the fly. Probably takes you less than 5 minutes to read through it. And also you'll find embeds to our videos when we make those in there. So if you guys haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do so. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I had a lot of fun doing the live stream today. And like I said, we'll be doing this more often. So I'll see you guys next time.